Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something incredibly relatable, but honestly rarely understood on a biological level. We're talking about navigating the storm, and specifically, the tools you can use to manage emotional overwhelm. Our goal here is to just provide a gentle, human space to figure out what exactly happens when your feelings stop knocking politely and just start flooding in, and how you can actually navigate those really heavy days using practical, science-backed strategies. So I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever felt almost too big for your own body? It's that exact moment when your chest feels impossibly tight, your thoughts get incredibly loud, and you're just hit with this heavy wave of sadness. Or maybe for you, it shows up as irritability, anger, or even this restless, hyperactive energy, which, by the way, the research shows is especially common if you have ADHD or anxiety. These are the physical alarm bells of an emotional storm. You might not even fully know why it's happening, but suddenly the intensity is just there, and it is demanding your full attention. To help make sense of all this, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the emotional storm. Second, calming the nervous system. Third, putting feelings into words. Fourth, reframing and reaching out. And finally, number 5, building your support toolkit. Okay, let's jump right into part 1, the emotional storm, and what happens when those emotions flood in. So in psychology, they map our emotional states on what's called an intensity spectrum. Down on the low end, you've got your everyday mild stress or uneasiness. In the middle, maybe some frustration or a bit of emotional heaviness. But way up at the high end, that is complete nervous system overdrive. And what's absolutely vital to understand here is that hitting this point is not a failure. It's not a personal flaw. It simply means you've reached the extreme high end of this biological spectrum, and that is exactly where overwhelm lives. And this is exactly why trying to use pure logic totally fails you during a storm. When you hit that high end of the spectrum, you actually experience an amygdala hijack. Basically, your thinking brain, that logic-driven prefrontal cortex of yours, just completely goes offline. Your body shifts entirely into instinct-driven survival mode. You're in physical overdrive. You literally cannot just think your way out of overwhelm. Your body physically needs to calm down first. Which brings us perfectly to part 2, calming the nervous system through guided regulation. The whole trick here is signaling safety to your brain using somatic psychology. Controlled breathing acts like a biological reset button. So let's actually try this 4-2-6 breath together right now. Seriously, go ahead and find a comfortable spot. Now, gently inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, hold that breath for 2 seconds, and slowly, gently exhale through your mouth for 6 seconds. Now, as you take another long exhale, just imagine releasing maybe 5% of your tension. Not all of it, just a tiny bit. Because when the storm is raging, we aren't trying to force immediate, perfect calm. Honestly, that's biologically impossible. We are just trying to create a little bit of space for it, allowing your brain the room it needs to gradually reset. All right, moving into part 3, putting feelings into words to help clear out that mental fog. Our second big tool relies on this super famous therapist adage, name it to tame it. Studies looking at affect labeling actually show that simply putting your feelings into words physically engages that prefrontal cortex we talked about earlier, which quiets down the amygdala. When you're overwhelmed, your fear center is just firing on all cylinders. So naming the feeling is quite literally like reaching up and pulling the fire alarm lever backwards to shut those sirens off. But here's the catch. You have to get specific. Think about the difference between a vague label, like I feel so sad, and a highly specific label, like I feel this emptiness that is swallowing me. Instead of just saying you're sad or mad, get incredibly creative and specific. Give the emotion a shape. You might say, I feel this heavy weight right in my chest, or even, I feel entirely numb, like my sadness doesn't even have a form. Pinning down that clarity actually helps your brain actively shift out of pure survival mode. Tool number 3 is the journal dump. You know how when emotions build up, your thoughts just start endlessly looping? Well, you can externalize that mental pressure by asking yourself a few simple prompts. What feels like way too much right now? What might my body be trying to tell me? Or if my sadness could actually speak, what would it say? Letting all that pressure safely land on a page stops the loop. And hey, there's no need for perfect grammar or profound insights here. You can literally scribble it on a napkin and throw it in the trash a minute later. Just the act of getting it out is what counts. That takes us to part 4, reframing and reaching out, where we start charting a new course. Tool 4 introduces CBT micro-reflections. Now, cognitive behavioral therapy really focuses on examining the thoughts that are driving our feelings.
So once you're feeling a bit more grounded, you gently examine the thoughts fueling your emotional fire by asking yourself, what wild story is my mind making up right now? We tend to tell ourselves the most catastrophic, terrible stories when we're overwhelmed. So catching that narrative in real time is an absolute game changer.
From there, you just do a few gentle check-ins. Ask yourself, okay, is there another possible explanation for this? Or my personal favorite, what would I say to my best friend if they were feeling this exact same way? And I want to be really clear about something. Asking these questions is absolutely not about invalidating your emotions. Your feelings are entirely valid. Rather, it's just about giving your overwhelmed, panicky brain a tiny bit more flexibility. It just helps break up that tunnel vision. Finally, let's wrap up with part 5, building your support toolkit through co-regulation and support. Here's a simple truth. Sometimes the nervous system simply does not calm down on its own. And you know what? That is entirely human. If you're finding yourself overwhelmed frequently, leaning on a trusted person, reaching out to a mental health professional, or using guided meditations isn't some sort of failure on your part. It is literal, basic human biology. We are deeply social creatures. Ultimately, support is not a last resort. It's part of how humans are inherently wired to regulate. Reaching out and sharing what's feeling so heavy without any fear of stigma or judgment is exactly how we are meant to heal. You absolutely do not have to weather these storms alone. Co-regulation is a biological imperative for us all. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this question. What gentle step will you take to weather your next emotional storm? Whether it's pausing for that 4-2-6 breath, getting super specific with naming your emotion, doing a fast 1-minute journal dump, challenging your mental story with those CBT micro-reflections, or just calling a friend for some co-regulation, you've got the tools now. So the next time those dark